Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me on another of my wonderful interviews. Now, we all know that the government are very much pushing for electric vehicles and they want to get rid of all the old diesels and petrol cars, and we know possibly the reasons why this is. Is this massive event called global warming, apparently, and we've got this wonderful policy of net zero in which everything's got to be electric. But it is a bit strange, isn't it? Because I've met a man when I was down in Totnes in Devon giving a talk who said, I've got a little gadget that he sells or used to sell, and it was saving people money with petrol and diesel vehicles. Very simple little thing. And it's been, it's been rubbished by a lot of people. It was being used by all sorts of people, and then all of a sudden, rubbished. And that intrigued me. Hang on a minute, I thought. If you've got something that's good for people and now it's being rubbished, we've heard that scenario so many times. The gentleman's name is Andrew Knott, and he joins me now. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, Richard. Thank you very much for the introduction.
Well, it does sound like there is a bit of a fuel spiracy going on here, to use the words from your very own book that you have produced, about a device that cuts fuel. And everybody ought to be using it because we all need to stop those emissions, apparently, but we just love to save money and make our vehicles go further.
Well, yes, absolutely. Well, I do have a story that is true and I hope interesting. And it's also a long story, but I can actually tell the gist of it in 2 or 3 minutes, I think. Would that be a
Well,
good place to start?
absolutely. Yeah, no, tell us about your involvement and what this thing is and all of it.
Okay, well, I had a background in vehicles and interest in cars, as so many young lads do. And I was young when all this started. I'm not young now, as you can tell.
Well, we're all getting older.
And I was also concerned about the environment, and that was well before most people even gave it a thought. We're talking about the 1970s and 80s. Well, it was
Right.
about 1989. I came across a simple device that was claimed to save fuel and cut pollution. I read about it in an article, and it was a great article, and it sounded like an absolutely great product. I thought, well, this is something I'm really interested in. And then I actually got a job selling it.
Oh,
And
right.
the device was actually a catalyst that you literally put in the fuel tank. I'll show you one in a minute.
Hmm.
Or it can go in the fuel line between the tank and the engine, and it has an effect on fuel, positive effect. Now, at that time, when I got involved, there were already around 200,000 UK marine vessels and road vehicles equipped with this, not just private users, tens and thousands of those, but also police forces, ambulance services, local authority fleets like Glasgow City had 1,000 of them, Sea Link ferries, P&O ferries, and many, many other organizations were using this and singing its praises. And with 200,000 or so customers under our belt, and everybody saying what an amazing product this was, it looked like the rest of the 25 million potential customers would adopt it as well, which of course would
Yeah,
have been marvelous.
absolutely.
It was great to be involved with a product that was really valued by the people who were buying it, and it was helping the environment. What more could you want? Ideal.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we're talking about a long time ago now, before any of these grey hairs, anything like this. Anyway, suddenly, as if from nowhere, there appeared this horrendous publicity from organizations everyone trusts, like making out that the product was actually a pile of junk. And in those days, it was before the internet, and we hit the press, especially the motoring press. People believed it, and suddenly it went from a wonderful project, doing serving people, serving the planet, and indeed making a decent living,
Hmm.
to suddenly none of that was happening anymore. It all became a nightmare. And the worst of it was that of all the organizations doing that was the AA, the most trusted organization in the land, um, the Technical Motoring magazine matters. They actually brought out an official report that they sent to the press, to the public, to motor and to overseas motoring organisations, making out the whole thing was junk, have nothing to do with it. But I mean, it just ripped the market apart. And there's, I was actually, in a personal level, left up the Swanee without a paddle.
Hmm.
And I also made the acquaintance of somebody who's been a friend and colleague ever since, Peter Murphy. And he was actually a fuel systems uh, technical specialist with a major international motor manufacturer. And he was very much involved with emissions control. In fact, it was Ford. And he had been headhunted into this. And he found himself um, uh, in a similar situation to myself. Um, and we were devastated. We thought there was something wrong here. And we actually got a hold of the copy of the AA report. And we looked at it and we read it, and it was so convincing that we thought, oh, maybe this isn't good after all, this product. And then we looked closer, and this we found the report was based on 5 quoted tests, and we found evidence that one of the tests had never taken place.
Oh.
And then we found evidence that 2 more of the tests had probably never taken place either.
Oh gosh.
And then we found out that the other 2 tests, the last 2 of the 5, had actually been sabotaged, like very, very crudely sabotaged, and without any shadow of doubt, they had
Right.
been. Now, this is back in about the early 1990s by now. And what we did was we raised these matters with the AA, and to cut a long story short, this led to us being threatened with legal action by them because they took it very seriously. We were making all sorts of accusations against them. But especially because we'd found a connection between their official technical document and the Shell oil company. So, which gave rise to suspicions that obviously they were not acting on behalf of motorists as they claim. And they were obviously very sensitive about it. But we even got invited to meetings at their headquarters in Basingstoke with their most senior management and legal people. And our impression was that they were trying to find a way to U-turn and retract their position because so much evidence was there to show that the product actually worked or the device worked. And we had such strong evidence that their case was bogus that they thought they could be exposed, I guess. Anyway, they had dug themselves in so deep they couldn't U-turn. And if they did, they'd have been hit with legal
Right.
claims from manufacturers of the device, of which, by the way, there were several. And even, of course, motorists who had followed their advice and had lost out very heavily by doing that.
Hmm.
Anyway, so it was absolutely a ridiculous situation, and we ended up with masses of paperwork and correspondence with them, but they wouldn't budge. But it wasn't just the AA that was doing this. There was also the Office of Fair Trading, believe it or not.
Oh, right. The Office of Fair Trade.
Yeah, they put out statements saying that the product didn't work, and their statements were based on a test that never happened. The Consumers Association did it. The Advertising Standards Authority got involved in a similar, also helped out this disinformation about the device. Who else? Oh, yes, motoring magazines like What Car Magazine and Practical Classics Magazine. They joined in as well. And there was just a whole group of very, very powerful organizations and the Department for Transport as well, basically saying this product was no good and we've tested it, and they hadn't tested it at all, and it was completely untrue.
Mm.
Anyway, we tried to get the case in the public domain. This was in the 1990s. But who would believe Andrew Knott and Peter Murphy against all these people? Not many people.
And the manufacturers, what about the manufacturers of this product? Because just to be clear, it's not something you designed or came
no,
up
no,
with.
no.
No.
Uh, yeah, absolutely. It's not. It's a product that was actually used by the Royal Air Force in World War II. I'll come on to that in just a minute.
Yeah, sure. But
Um,
I was just curious about the manufacturers themselves. Were they putting up any defence against their product?
well, they were trying, but they just
It was too overwhelming. The
yeah,
sort of shutting down. Right. Okay.
yeah.
Sorry to have interrupted.
No, 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 not at all. No, it's a conversation, not a monologue. I hope. But um, yeah. So anyway, this situation came about. But we tried to get it in the public domain. Tried to
Mm.
get journalists interested. Nobody would bite. Well, one or two nearly did, but nobody did. And we had no option but to forget all about it really and get on with our lives in other ways, which was not easy because our case was very, very strong. Anyway, years later, the internet started getting going, and we started seeing copies of this UK product being used, like for instance in America by the United States Armed Forces. The same product, really, that the English or the UK authorities had suppressed, now being used by in the United States Armed Forces, shipping in the Pacific, trains in India, tuk-tuks in Asia, you name it. But here, nobody was interested in it. And,
Right.
and then again, later on, in the last few years, we tried to revive it, both the product itself, but it's very, very difficult. Um, and then we started tackling the AA in particular and the Department for Transport. And they, again, said there's no evidence that it works. When there's so much evidence, I've got,
Mm.
it's ridiculous. And they refused to own up for their past misinformation. Nothing we could do. And anyway, in a nutshell, that's the story. Except that, and I've just basically forgotten about it. And then just a few months ago, I did tell this story to a friend. He said, "Peter and I have got to write a book about it." So we have, and that's the one in its fuel conspiracy. And
There it is.
there's the questions like, well, if you ask me some questions, I could actually run through. They probably are answered in here.
So first, let me just say that the book is available, will be available from your website. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, the website.
Yes. So people can, and I mean, it's a slim book, but it's got lots of information, and it tells the story in more detail than what you've said. And you very kindly gave it to me, and I have read it. Albeit that we were going to do this interview a few weeks earlier, and I got ill. So anyway, we've managed to reconvene. So what's interesting about this is that it was established, there was an industry for it, there was a completely separate company to yourself, although you did work for them selling this
Yeah.
product. It seems that it was adopted by military and big organizations,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden out comes a report which says it's rubbish, and then presumably these big organizations stopped, did they all just stopped using it?
Well, yes. I mean, once that publicity appeared, bad news
Yeah.
travels faster than good news.
But what I don't understand is if it cuts fuel and it cuts pollution, users of this, particularly large fleets of vehicles, the managers of that would have noticed that if they stop using this product, the fuel consumption presumably is increased.
Well, they would notice that. Uh, yes. and some of them did continue to use it, but it became very. They made it difficult or impossible to market the thing as it would be done.
Right. Is the company
And
that makes it still in existence?
and and yeah, that's really what happened. I mean, maybe just to knit through the book, just because it's got a long story cut short,
Mm.
and it does answer most of the questions that people have. For a start, what is it? Well, we're talking here about a catalyst, a simple catalyst made of tin mainly, and antimony in contact with mild steel, and it has various chemical effects on fuel,
Mm.
which is a galvanic. I don't know if you've ever had like an amalgam filling in a tooth.
Unfortunately, I have.
So, and if you've ever, I don't know if you've ever done it. A lot of people have, by accident, bitten into tin foil on a chocolate,
Oh, yes.
and it goes ah.
Yes.
Well, that is a galvanic current that's been set up by similar metals in your tooth.
Ah, right. Okay.
And this is one thing that this does. It sets up a galvanic current in fuel. And that has, I'm not a fuel scientist. Peter Murphy, who I work with, is, well, he's not a fuel scientist, but he's the person to ask about the
Mm.
science of this. But that has
So,
an effect on fuel.
so I mean, what you're saying is that there is a physical, physics would show that there is something that happens between fuel and your device or this device that makes the fuel work better and
Yeah.
produce less pollution,
Yeah.
which is a win-win for everybody.
Absolutely. I mean, I believe you need to speak to Peter. He can give you a
Yes.
full.
How much? I mean, how much
What,
fuel are you talking about saving?
well, what was actually happening on a chemical level is that more oxygen molecules are combining with hydrocarbon molecules, which is what fuel consists of. That's at the basis of it, plus the
Right.
galvanic reaction. And
I mean, but what sort of percentage would you say if you've got a say 100% tank of the old stuff and you haven't got it, the saving would give you what 10%, 20%?
I would think that can produce those figures. For instance, one thing that happens is a vehicle will run far cleaner.
Right.
Because what happens in an engine over time is you get carbon deposits build up, hard, brittle carbon, and that impedes the airflow through the engine. And bit by bit, as you drive with this, if it's a car, but it's not just for cars, by the way, it's
Mm.
anything that uses fuel, generators, boilers, you name it. What happens is, if it's an engine, it gets carboned up. That reduces the efficiency. Over time, if you run with one of these fitted, the carbon will burn off. That will restore the original performance, and then
Right.
over time you can get a very substantial saving. If you just
Right.
fit one to a new car, the saving will be measurable, but it won't be as anything like that. So
Right.
I would say, averaged out across the whole spectrum of everything, we're probably talking, and it's only you'd need a PhD to really get to the bottom of it.
Sure.
But I would say you'd average out probably 3 to 5%, something like that, overall
Right.
cutting.
So it is. I mean, it's a marked difference, and of course you said. I mean, it's keeping the engine clean and it's reducing pollution.
And it's doing that. It's doing both.
Yes, and what with all these clean zones and things,
Yeah.
and these ULEZ and all of this sort of nonsense, which people are being fined ridiculous prices for driving their vehicles in. This is, in one respect, you could say we don't need any of that. We just fit this product. Was it expensive to purchase?
Well, no, not at all. I mean, there's been various manufacturers of it, including, and I've known or been involved with
Hmm.
most of them. Um, but uh, so
So not. So it's not. I mean, you're not
most
because you.
recently, I actually revived it, and I've had to stop it at least for the time being because I'm making a living elsewhere.
Hmm.
Um, But
But it's an inexpensive thing that can go in your vehicle and save you money overall over a long period of time, especially if
absolutely.
you're doing and keeps the engine clear.
Yeah,
But for
absolutely. And it doesn't wear out and it doesn't run
right,
out, basically.
and large organisations with fleets of all sorts of different types of vehicles, as you say, generators to the Air Force to all sorts of people, have found this historically of benefit.
Oh,
And
absolutely. There's a
yes,
huge track record, and yet nobody knows about it. It's
uh, but for whatever reason, the AA, and I'm not here to disparage the AA or say anything negative about them, and I'm only going by your claim just to for my own legal purposes.
well,
But for whatever reason, and it's in your book, decided to rubbish this particular product, and presumably they had their reason to do this. Whether they were lent on by anybody else, who knows? But it sort of has diminished a good product, and But the thing is, we see this in so many different areas where there may well be financial reasons why something that's beneficial to a large number of people is not beneficial to various companies who have investments elsewhere. And I'm just putting it very generally like that because we don't want to, well, I can't afford to have huge legal fees thrown at me for allegations I, do not necessarily hold. But have you any idea why it would want to be taken off the market?
yes, well, I certainly do, Richard. So basically, so the book, it covers what the device is, where it came from, including
Yes.
the wartime history, which is it definitely played a role in helping Britain win the war. Well, the Allies.
Right. So
Um,
it's right back to the Second World
yeah.
War.
So I didn't invent it, as I said. Some of the evidence where large organisations were using it successfully. It was on BBC Top Gear, by the way, back in 1989,
Yes.
and it was really taking off in a grand style. And so there's pages and pages of letters, recommendations, scientific reports, all indicated that
Yes.
it would take off in a big, big way. I
But the
have,
nub of it is, why do you suppose? I'm sorry to rush you to this because I know the audience will be going, yeah,
okay,
yeah,
okay, all right,
we've
here we are
accepted
then.
that it's good.
Now, here we are then. Reduce demand for petrol, diesel, and all other hydrocarbon fuels. That's number one. Number two, no demand at all, either for most liquid fuel additives or for premium grades of fuel at the pump. So, for instance, as you might have wandered into Halford or somewhere like that and seen rows and rows of bottles of liquid fuel additives. Ever done that? You're aware?
I've never used it. I'd have to say, I rarely go into motoring shops. I just take the van down to the local
Yeah.
service station and hope that they can sort it out for me.
Okay, yeah, fine. And you also, if you go into like a petrol station and you often presented with fuel, for instance, now about 140 a litre, or you've got better fuel at £1.50 a litre
Yes.
or more. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's fuel with additives in it. Well, with this, you don't need any of those additives.
Yes.
So that is a big reason why the oil industry, again, didn't want it.
So, I see. So what you're saying is that the industry as such doesn't like the idea that you can buy an independent gadget when they can be selling more stuff,
Yeah,
that a whole range of stuff in all sorts of different ways. So they would be losing money.
exactly. So that.
And yeah, okay.
But the motor industry as well, you would think, and this is what so many other, if I had a pound for everybody who has told me, if that's any good, motor manufacturers would fit this as standard. No, it doesn't work like that. Motor manufacturers, so exhaust system components, engine components, when they run cleaner with less poisonous emissions going into the exhaust system, engines and exhaust system components last longer. That means they sell less replacement
yes.
parts.
Well, we know that obsolescence is built into
Yeah.
products.
So
And
yeah, well,
yeah, which is a completely ridiculous notion if you take the stance from not a business money grabbing corporate sort of
Mm.
position, but you take the position from actually doing something for humanity and making things last as long as possible, because you're ripping out raw
Mm.
resources from the earth. So if you have to keep replacing those things, you're still ripping the earth apart. But you know, it's like in the old days. I had a Zenith E camera, 35mm camera, made out of plastic, last a lifetime. I could still use it now if I could get the 35mm film in it. No problems with it, all mechanical, nothing to go wrong really, because it was chunky, it was Russian, you know, you could drop it down a crevasse, as long as you could find it, it'd probably still work. These days, you know, we upgrade left, right, and centre. Everything's obsolete. You know, the whole phones. You know, all of this. It's a complete con. Everything is a complete con in the commercial world.
Yeah.
It seems to me, and this has been one of those things. It would appear that is a great idea, but actually is, you know, vested interests have decided, well, we can't have that. It's like light bulbs, isn't it?
Yeah.
In the
Same
old
thing.
days, light bulbs could last. I mean, apparently there is a light bulb, somebody told me, that was one of Edison's, or very early one. It still works. And if we manufactured that, light bulb businesses would go out of business, because we'd all still have the original light bulbs.
Yeah.
I guess it is a problem for companies who still want to be afloat, that if you make like a perpetual motion machine, you no longer need to buy any more of them.
Yes, and that's one of the problems with this. Like these fuel additives, a lot of people do know about them and they do use them. And this is doing the same job as a lot of the fuel additives, probably doing it better. But with a fuel additive, you keep on, if you start using it, you generally keep on using it. With this, you fit it just once, forget it, you don't need anything like that anymore. It's
Mm,
precisely the same as the everlasting light bulb or so much else I know of.
yes.
All the years we were toiling away at this, I thought we were dealing with some unique case, but actually, especially in the last few years, I just realized it's par for the course. It's how the world really works.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I, you know, it is interesting because people don't necessarily know that these types of products exist and that such cover-ups go on. It is curious that the AA of all people would be the ones to try and rubbish it rather than other people, because you do think of the AA, and I am a member of the AA,
Are
and
you?
they do come out. Yeah, I
Maybe
do.
you could send them a copy of our book.
I don't think they'll listen to me. But you know, when I break down, it is very nice. I mean, I pay. The money has gone up over the years, of course, and of course with my van, I rarely do break down. So but that's insurance on the whole, isn't it? You pay because of the fear that you're going to be in whatever it is,
Yeah.
that with life insurance, or I might die, but I'll leave something to the missus or the kids or whatever. And we all pay over the nose in all of that industry to keep an industry alive. I have to say that when I used to do my corporate video stuff, I never insured any of my cameras and things, and I was doing that for about 15 years. Not once did I lose anything or have anything stolen, and never had to have it replaced. And so I saved insurance for that. But then that's because I have in the past been a bit of a skinflint and just didn't want to pay. But we get that fear factor, don't we? But it is I mean, it is a shame that products are there which can make our lives so much better. And we know that with free energy. I mean, that's another area that
Yeah.
if anybody comes up with a free energy machine, unless they make that publicly available to everybody at the same time and just get it out there so nobody can cover it up, and it doesn't cost very much, the industry will clamp down. And we know that happens.
Well, that's exactly what's happened. So you say why the AA, by the way, just reading it back
Mm,
a paragraph or two. Well, so you have a product that people would understand quite readily, I guess, that oil companies wouldn't want. So if oil companies said don't use it, they'll say, well, you would say that, wouldn't you? But if somebody like the AA or the Office of Fair Trading or all the others say they've tested it and found it didn't work when actually they haven't tested it,
mm.
Well, they are going to be believed, and that's what happens. Now, the reasons for that you might not want on your show, so I could quite understand why you might not. But people can guess at it. It's just how the whole system works. And Peter, my colleague in particular, and he spent so long just asking for fairness from these organizations that are supposed to encourage beneficial technology. But what he found was, and I have found, each and every one of them are a total brick wall. And there's only one explanation for it, which I won't mention because obviously I'm on your show.
Well, as you say, I think most people can guess, and we've seen it in so many other industries, that vested interest in certain things means that certain products should never see the light of day because they are too beneficial. I mean, that just seems to be, and we mentioned it with light bulbs, and we could probably mention it with smartphones. I think that smartphones, the batteries and things are designed, or parts of it, rumor has it, and I can't say for sure, but it doesn't surprise me. The same with computers, that they get clogged up, and in the end, software is upgraded, and it puts so much malware on your machine, everything slows down. I think people have reluctantly just got used to the fact that we live in a world where obsolescence is built in order to keep big corporations making profits.
Yes, and on the other side of the coin, you get products that should not see the light of the day, and they're pushed and pushed and pushed and forced down our throats or even in our arms,
Absolutely. And we've seen that with medical interventions and highly processed foods and,
Yeah,
and the practices.
exactly.
But we are in, but the value of you coming, for me, the value of you coming on the show and saying, here is yet another product which is good for humanity, good for the planet, it's reducing pollution, and has been nobbled, if I can use that phrase.
Good word, nobbled.
Has been nobbled in the sort of good old-fashioned Terry Thomas, magnificent men and their flying machines type way. I say, absolute shower. We must do something about, all of this, Eric Sykes and Terry Thomas. But this is what's going on. And I think that more and more people are becoming aware of all the different areas in which our lives have been nobbled by these larger organizations who claim on the front of it with their glossy magazines and their sort of glamorous adverts to be the giving us wonderful things, and actually behind the scenes we're beginning to realize just what a grubby industry so many of these companies really are. And that's why I go on about family-run businesses and small firms, because you can't be a grubby industry if you're a family-run business or a small farmer or anything like that, because you couldn't afford to, because your customers will leave you.
Yes. And when they get so big, they don't care anymore. And,
yes. That's why we're just a number on it. Your call is important to us. Well, if it was that important to us, you would answer the bloody phone much quicker, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But clearly, it's all lies, and more damn lies.
Well, exactly. So all I'm bringing to you, Richard, is a case that is, in fact, exactly that. And I would say what is good about what I would say what's important about it is actually, because of this process we went through, in fact, we must have been stark staring mad, Peter and Murphy and myself, to do it. But we've just ended up with so much documentation that they haven't got a leg to stand on. They've done very naughty things, these people. And,
yes.
And I think from where I'm coming from, I'm obviously been, sunk years into this as a product, but I'm very much interested in the story, because I think the story is important, because, as you say, more people are waking up to the reality of how the world works, but we can prove it to anybody beyond any shadow of doubt that this is it. And if this process of awakening gathers pace, I think instead of a grim world that I'm sure we're both worried about, we could have a wonderful world instead. And that's the importance of all.
That's absolutely. And the fact that, the other thing is you've gathered the evidence, and Judgment Day will come sooner or later.
Yeah.
And I think it's coming very soon, really, because I think there's going to be a lot of things, particularly in the next year or two. So people can get access to your book through your website, which is fuelspiracy.info.
Incorrect. Yes.
At the time of recording, it's not quite ready, but this will be launched in a week or so after we've recorded. But the people are watching now, and hopefully now they will be able to go to the website. I'll put a link in the description,
Yeah.
and they can go and grab a copy of your book. And the more people that do know this sort of stuff and can talk about it, puts the pressure on for these sort of things to come out in the open, because it's got to come out in the open. The light will shine into the dark recesses and show a lot of these corporations for what they are and what they've been doing.
Well, yes, and it's corporations and all these global organizations who, even a few years ago, as I'm sure you did, thought, we thought they were basically good guys looking out for us. And don't think
And
that
now we know
anymore.
nothing is further from the truth.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
Well, it's a fascinating story, Andrew. Thank you for sharing it with me and the viewers. I'm sure anybody who drives a vehicle or even has a generator or anything like that, or people in industry. I mean, you can imagine that the amount of people who have all sorts of petrol-driven or diesel-driven vehicles or machines, rather, the savings that this could bring to so many people. I gather the product's not currently available, although in America, I think you said it's been replicated.
yes. Well, just to clarify that, in America, there is an organization and outfit them named in the book, and they're quite well established in various parts of the world. Opposite to here, where we had the government and everybody just doing everything to put us out of business. Believe it or not, there, the Department of Defense and the Department of Energy put money into testing it, a copy of our UK product, and found that it worked. And they did that
Wow.
particularly for use by the military there.
Right. So,
But
well,
there's nobody actually making a very good job of it, because
yeah.
basically it was a thriving industry that looked like it would develop like it should. They made sure that people didn't, stop buying it. And ever since in this country, it's been a cottage industry,
Mm.
you know. So it would be lovely to somehow get a chance to make it be what it should all along have been. But both it and the story are of value, and nobody should buy one of these products thinking it's going to mean they never need to spend money on fuel again. No,
No, of
can't
course.
promise that, but it will
No.
make a difference. And once you've fitted it, your engine will run, or whatever it is, boiler, anything like that, will run cleaner, more efficiently, less pollution. And yes, it's just even now, that when was 1941? It was 82 years ago, coming on to 83 years ago. It helped the RAF fly aircraft then on,
Yeah.
and when on poor quality fuel, when they needed high quality fuel, and it still works now. And in fact, on modern petrol vehicles, it works particularly well, because they're this E10 that they sell now is a very low quality fuel. Actually, is promoted as environmentally beneficial, but that's not completely true. What it does is E10, it's got more ethanol in it, and it worsens your fuel economy. Having one of these can put that right.
Well, they won't be pleased you said that, of course, but that's your point. I have to say that's your point of view. I don't know anything about fuels. I just
Yeah.
stick the nozzle in my thing and get the cheapest diesel I can and hope it gets me to my destination. But you're probably right. We know how the world works. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But Andrew, thank you for sharing your story and the story of this product. Has it got an actual name? Has it got a name other than a gadget?
It's got loads of names because loads of people have made it. It was
Right.
the first. The inventor was a man named Henry Broquet, who was a Royal Air Force engineer, in 1941. He's the man credited with its invention, but Russian scientists also helped him. And he marketed the product first in the 1960s before he got bought out and the thing got quashed for the first time. And he called his product Carbon Flow. But Carbon Flow, sadly, I've actually been running it, but the prevailing conditions have been such that I've had to stop that. But in the book, it explains all of this and the other people who have been involved. There's been loads, but all cottage businesses. It's crazy, really.
Yeah, it is mad. It was considering how many people are. Yeah, well, considering the narrative that cars are polluting and we have these ULEZ zones and all of this, I mean, it is counterintuitive, really. Maybe you better send one to Sadiq Khan and say, here, stick that in your buses and all that, and maybe and you know, and any diesel trains underground, because it seems that the underground is more polluted than overground, except they turn everything upside down to prove it the other way.
Yeah.
Andrew, thank you for coming on the show, sharing that. The book is available from the website. The website is in the description. And I hope that people do go and check it all out and find out what has been going on behind the scenes.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you very much.
It's an absolute pleasure. Well, I will be back with more interviews and more monologues, of course, so do stay tuned to the channel. But in the meantime, from Andrew and myself, thank you for watching. Till next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.